Hey, this is Ryan Steele, and you're listening to the Give and Go podcast.
Welcome back to the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Mitch Shreve, along with the basketball geniuses, the light bulbs of this operation, Ben Sperry, Ryan Steele. So let's dive right into our episode today. We're going to talk some NBA playoff stuff, end of the season stuff, because as we record this right now, we're about 4-ish, 5-ish, 6-ish games away from the start of the playoffs. So we're coming down the wire here with the last couple weeks of the regular season. So we're going to talk about some end of the season awards. A few episodes ago, we talked about mid-season awards. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those up, and then, gentlemen, you can make your picks to see if these same nominees we had at mid-season stand out to you or not. So we're going to start with one we've actually been talking about a lot lately, so I don't expect to hear a lot out of you, but the MVP race. Mid-season, we nominated Embiid, LeBron, Jokic, Giannis, and then a possible Dame-Steph combination. Where do you think we're at? One of you.
Well, I guess I would start with, I feel that some of this got shifted because of injuries, which is kind of unfortunate because I think we're at the point now that it looks like Jokic is going to be the MVP. And there's going to be some, and we've already heard this in the media to some degree, that think that it's not really a deserved MVP because, LeBron missed a lot of the season and he looked like he could be a favorite. Embiid maybe would win it if he played every game. Is the kind of the theory that you see out there. Steph's been so hot lately that there's a late push for him. The Suns have won so much that Chris Paul is getting a late push by some. But the truth is, I think Jokic has been the best player in the league all year statistically, and the eye test matches that to a large degree. I think his impact is the best in terms of what he brings for his team. So I think it's a deserved MVP for Jokic regardless, though our nominees on the list will probably change a little bit with the back half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that for the most part there. I don't think there's a need to delegitimize it because of people being injured. I mean, players get injured every year. I'm sure years that LeBron won it or, people were injured or missed games. It's part of the game. So I think one thing that helped too was, you get Harden, KD on the same team. It kind of eats away votes at each other there, where if maybe Harden never comes and the Nets are still like the 2 seed, maybe, and KD, stayed healthy, maybe he's there. But I mean, what's happened is what happened. So Jokic, deservedly so, where he has the Nuggets for Jamal Murray being out and, changes to the roster mid-season. I mean, he's really kept him afloat. So I think it looks like a no-brainer. So, yeah, I mean, Jokic seems clear-cut.
I would say if we did it just on the second half of the season, the other nominees would still be Embiid in there. I think Giannis would move up among the nominees. Obviously, Steph would be way up among the nominees. And I think Chris Paul would take the place of where we have LeBron and maybe even Dame to some degree.
Right. Yeah, Chris Paul has definitely have to be in the discussion. It's more with CP3, though. I'm not saying it's not his play, but just having him on the floor and his efficiency of how he, runs an offense. Like I made that Peyton Manning thing, that the comparison. I really mean that. Whether or not he was the best quarterback, his offense was going to be efficient. Whether he handed the ball off 10 straight times, it was just the right play to do. He didn't even have to throw for 300 yards. So CP3 could go for 16 and 8, and because he was out there the whole time, your offense and your team just so much better.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I mean, granted, we haven't done it in a full podcast, but we did a fast break where I argued that Chris Paul is a top 3-point guard of all time. I did a ISO shot where I talked about how Steph's having a better season now than he did during his unanimous MVP season, or at least just as good. So it's not that I don't think these guys deserve, accolades. I just think Jokic has had the best overall season. And I mean, those guys are amazing though.
All right, let's move on to Rookie of the Year. And this might actually be probably top one or two most controversial moments on the Give and Go basketball podcast here. But we nominated for Rookie of the Year LaMelo, Therese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Wiseman quickly. And we did catch some heat for having Edwards down on the list at the beginning of the season. I think, Ryan, you even gave a shout out here a couple weeks ago on that.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, Anthony Edwards is a dog. I knew that. I thought he was gonna be the best player coming out of the draft, and he's been great lately. I mean, I'm not saying I'm super old school, but winning matters, man, and they stink. The Wolves are butt. I mean, they are trash juice. Ugh. So I'm sorry, like you can get all these numbers and you're a good player for sure, but I'm leaning LaMelo. I know he missed time. I don't care, man. He did something to that terrible organization. The Hornets are trash too, and he came in, seemed like he made the game fun, hitting people with passes, scoring, shooting it well for a rookie, especially a dude who, you know, I know it's not fair to link him to what his brother did, but you know, he had that stigma to push, like, oh, Lonzo's supposed to shoot good. He didn't. What are you gonna do? And he came in and lit it up. So I lean LaMelo. I think his impact on that organization was huge and more than just stats.
Now, if it was obviously just in the second half of the season, LaMelo just got back like a week and a half
right?
ago
Yeah,
or something.
facts. Yeah.
Now, if it's based on the whole year, I think it is actually a somewhat tight race. Edwards' overall stats, since the All-Star break, he's been incredible. I mean, he's averaged like 24 a game on pretty decent efficiency. He's had some huge nights. You know, he's probably closed the gap, and maybe you could argue he has the most potential out of any of these guys. I think it's close between him and LaMelo on that point. Halliburton's been solid all year long and efficient all year long. If there's a guy that got a de facto Rookie of the Year award, it'd almost be him, but he even got hurt late. So I think it's actually going to be an interesting call to see where the voters go on this one. And it'll come down to like what Ryan said. What do you value the most? Is it playing all season? Is it stats, like bulk stats, advanced stats? Is it efficiency? I mean, or is it winning? I mean, Quickly's been around all year and actually had a pretty decent season for the Knicks, but that's not your normal Rookie of the Year profile either.
And he just gets it done so much on defense that he would never win the award because they don't vote it like that.
And if you go just by advanced statistics, like somebody like Isaiah Stewart should be in the conversation, but nobody even knows who that is.
Right. Nobody's picking him. I mean, look, it's going to be between two players. It's going to depend if people think Melo missed too much time or if they don't care or if they think that, just the strictly – the counting stats is what to go by for it.
And I think normally Rookie of the Year tends to be counting stats unless they have huge impact on a winning team.
Yeah.
Right. And so that might benefit Edwards.
All right. Moving on to Defensive Player of the Year. We had Gobert, Embiid, Miles Turner, Giannis, and LeBron as our mid-season guys.
And I think I said a few weeks later that I think we made a mistake and didn't have Ben Simmons on this list rather than maybe, one of the five, maybe Miles Turner, I don't know. But and I think we went by Gobert because they were the best team and one of the better defenses. I don't know who you'd pick off of the Knicks, but they deserve a shout out for having such a great team defense this year. I don't know who you'd pick off their team as the best defender. I think Ben Simmons, much like Giannis, brings a lot of versatility to the defensive end. That's hard to overstate its importance in today's game. But I don't know where you go with this. I don't know if Gobert is still in the front runner's seat or not at this point.
I think the two big omissions from this were obviously Ben Simmons, like you said, a dude that basically just beats you up from whether you're a point guard bringing the ball up the floor, he's guarding the four, whatever. I mean, he beats you up defensively. And then to me, the other guy that's in that class that to me, and I might be a homer for it, but Bam Adebayo and Ben Simmons to me are so versatile for how the game's played today. How we talk about, how offensive players have to be as far as shooting from 25, 26 feet. Those two guys can switch on everything, basically hold down that man. They can swing and rotate everything. You just put them on, both of them would guard Giannis if they played the Bucks. Both of them would see time against KD if they played the Nets. I mean, to me, that's the race for Defensive Player of the Year. I think Simmons has been, politicking a little bit. He's been kind of campaigning himself out there a little bit, which, hey, I respect it. Do you? I think Bam, he might not get the love. It's more of a hard hat kind of mentality, but I think his defense and the way he played it kind of kept the Heat afloat for most of the year, because I mean that they had a huge, kind of like almost like a sophomore slump from their year last year, and I think his defense was huge in that. So those are my two for Defensive Player of the Year.
And actually, that's fair. I think he was another huge omission, Bam Adebayo. And honestly, I think it's hard to look at just defensive metrics for this one. But a lot harder than it looks at looking at offensive metrics to determine who the best and most impactful defensive player is. So much is contextual based on your defensive strategy too, and who you're playing around. But in terms of versatility, I think, Ben Simmons, Bam Adebayo, Giannis.
Bam should get it for the block on Tatum last year. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, golly.
All right, Coach of the Year. We had Doc Rivers, Quinn Snyder, and Steve Nash as our three nominees for the midseason awards. We want to make any changes to that at the end of the year?
I got to me, Ben. I think we're gonna probably maybe say the same name.
Monty Williams.
Okay, I was gonna say Thibodeau, but so I mean,
actually, yeah, I can see Thibodeau too because nobody.
The stinking Knicks are the 4th seed, and they play legit defense. What?
So I actually think both of them fall into the same category, which is one of the normal winners of this award, which is vastly outperformed preseason expectations.
Right.
And I think the Knicks have vastly outperformed anybody's expectations getting to the 4 seed. But honestly, the Suns being within half a game of the 1 seed, if they get the 1 seed in the West and are the number 1 overall seed in the NBA, Monty Williams might get the award.
But it's almost like chicken and egg theory for me with Monty. I love him. I thought he's such a respected dude, and he's just one of the great guys in the NBA. Like he's just a great dude, And I thought he got a raw deal a little bit, in his last few stops. But do we give him the credit for getting like the guy we say Chris Paul is this efficiency calculator who's just out there making all these plays, which he has to get some of the credit. But when you talk about the Knicks, most of those guys were on the team.
Yeah, and not only that, but none of them were known as defensive stoppers, really.
None of them were known.
Yeah.
Quickly's a rookie, and Julius Randle has been a pretty good player in the NBA, but I don't think anybody saw him like in the last 2 years becoming this, this good. So I mean, Tibbs is up there, man. I think it should be between those three: Quinn Snyder, Tibbs, and Monty for sure.
Yeah, and I think to your point, and to come back to your analogy, what may hurt Monty Williams in the end is a lot of people gave Peyton Manning all the credit for every time they were good, not the coaches.
And the coaches,
right?
none.
Maybe Tony Dungy to some extent, but all those other coaches, it was
Jim Caldwell won a ring and got no love.
It's like you don't need to run the offense, right? You just can focus on everything else because Peyton Manning's got your offense. And maybe that's the same thing with Chris Paul and your team. The coach on the floor kind of gets the shine as the Coach of the Year candidate. Maybe we should give it to Chris Paul. That'd be interesting. Then you'll have to make him MVP.
Get on.
All right, and then we had the Kevin Martin Award, which was the shining star on a team that is not shining at all. We had Bradley Beal, Vucevic, Trae Young, Jeremy Grant, Colin Sexton, Malik Beasley.
So Atlanta made too much of a run for Trae Young to really be on here now.
Right.
They're pretty good. Bradley Beal and the Wizards, and actually Russell Westbrook too, are right outside, and they might even win in a play-in tournament.
They're kind of scary. I'm not. I don't want to play them at all.
Yeah. I don't know if that just leaves Jeremy Grant as your de facto winner here, because I feel like Vucevic is almost too good to be on this list.
And I meant it like when I just jokingly kind of came up with that award. I didn't mean it to go like super negative, but Kevin Martin Award is kind of negative. I just kind of meant a guy that was going crazy on a team. So in a way, Steph could be that guy because they're not really a top team. They're in that same tier that the Wizards are in the West, and compared to the East. So I would say Steph is up there.
Though what is evinced to me by the Kevin Martin Award, right? What the
Right.
connotation is to me is that he's a guy that's putting up stats, but he'd never be an all-star, really.
Exactly.
And
So
that's why I say Beal and Vucevic are almost too good for this in a way.
Definitely
And
too
Steph's
good.
clearly way too good for this because you can't be both the Kevin Martin Award and an MVP candidate, right? Like, I don't
True.
know. It's tough.
Well, as always, we do have one more that we got to see. And there was no nominees on this one, but I think we talked about a couple names. But the Anthony Bennett Award, lot of hype that you don't live up to.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anybody for that one here at the end of the
now
year?
the season's gone, and I apologize for the Edwards slander because he's a dog. A couple guys that I was just sitting here the other day, and I was like, whoa. Hold on, he got drafted like Onyeka Okongwu, like he was a top 10 dude, and he plays he plays some for the Hawks, but he doesn't really do much. There's some random people in that top 10 that, I think those top 3 guys are good, and even like Tyrese Halliburton has showed he's good, but Denny Avila had a terrible injury. Rest up, hope he gets better because that injury was kind of sticking the other day. But some of those guys in the top 10. Looking a little shaky, baby.
That's true. And I think the way to really look at this award right now is what teams clearly made a huge error in judgment, like after the season, like who they could have had. Because Tyrese Halliburton, for instance, went 12th.
12th, yeah.
Isaiah Stewart, who low-key is putting up a really efficient, like 8 and 7 off the bench. Say what you want about that overall stat line, but like he's actually playing well on both ends, went 16th. Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith, Denny Gia, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Killian Hayes, maybe has shown flashes. A lot of these guys, Okoro for the Cavs, Okongwu, they just haven't done anything. And it's like maybe there's potential there we haven't seen yet. But there's
a strong draft class. It was 3 guys, and then you got lucky that you hit on Halliburton at 12, basically. And now I guess for the rest of that draft, you just hope you get some longevity out of some guys that can be around in your system for 6-7 years, and you can help you win, basically.
Right.
2 awards, Mitch, that I don't know did we do was 6th man and most improved. Did we ever have anything for that?
We had nothing for that.
So
let's talk about 6th man.
Ben, I think we're probably on the same page there. It's going to come from 2 guys from one team. It's going to be one or the other, probably.
Well, and let me say it like this. I think everybody's assumed Jordan Clarkson was going to be the 6th man of the year from the Utah Jazz.
But Joe Ingles don't play no bleep.
But to me, Joe Ingles is actually the better 6th man on his own team. And this did happen just a year or 2 ago with Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell both being off the same bench for the Clippers. And it's like, which one's the best 6th man when they're both averaging 20 a game off the bench? The case for Clarkson and why he'll probably get it is he's the best volume scorer off the bench in the league right now. But the case for Joe Ingles is he's better defensively. He can facilitate, and his percentages are way, way better. He's so much more efficient.
And he talks better trash on the court too. You can't ever just hold that one out.
He's more versatile both defensively and offensively. I just feel like Joe Ingles is actually the better bench player. He starts a lot more because if there's an injury, he starts, not Clarkson. But, to me, Joe Ingles is actually the 6th man of the year.
So, yeah, we agree on that then. And then the most improved, I think, might be the most easy to pick out of all the awards. I think Julius Randle. So this is the only thing I hate about most improved in any sport is most years, I'd say 9 out of 10 times, you don't pick anybody who actually necessarily improved.
Yeah.
You just pick a guy who got in a new system or a new
better
coach
situation.
or a new role or more usage, maybe it's usually something like that. So I think that has contributed to Julius Randle's rise. He was already a good player in the NBA. He played well for the Pelicans, and now he just finds himself with the ball in his hands all the time. That builds your confidence. If you've ever played basketball on any level, whether it's on the playground, in an actual high school or college or NBA game, like if you have the ball and you start cooking a little bit, it does something to your confidence. You're now taking shots and making plays that you wouldn't normally do if you were just touching the ball maybe 4 or 5 times and a half. Now you you're more willing to make mistakes and try things. I think that's helped him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, him getting to be the superstar of a team or like the leader, the guy that they go to for points, I think it's just allowed him to use a lot of the skills, a lot of the potential that was already there. And it's actually, like you're saying, it's almost like a backhanded compliment for some of these guys. I remember back in the day, Hito Turkoglu, when he won the Most Improved Player award, was kind of like, I don't know what to think of that because I actually think I've always been pretty good at basketball, right? And he did have an exceptional year one year with the Magic. He jumped his stats up a little bit, averaged 20 and 5 and 5 or something like that on good efficiency. But the truth is, Hideo Turkoglu was really good for a number of years for a number of teams. So I can kind of see where he's coming from. He's like, did I just become better? I don't think I did. I just think I had the ball in my hands more and had more opportunities to do things.
Yeah.
Like you're saying.
Because to me, a true most improved would be like, oh, a guy we signed from the G League who nobody has wanted. We think we've built him up. He's been in our system, and now he has like he scores like 7.5 points a game for you. To me, that's like a most improved guy.
Yeah.
I think a sneaky one. He didn't have enough time to do it because he didn't play enough. Kevin Porter Jr. for going to the Rockets. He's kind of dogging. I know it's on a terrible team. He just doesn't have the resume as long this year, but.
If we're going to go with Porter Jr.'s, Michael Porter Jr. for the Denver Nuggets is also a guy that might fit this mold a little bit. Mm-hmm. Maybe because he had too much potential. Like everybody assumed that inside of him was maybe a guy who could average 20 someday. We just didn't see it because of injuries. But he's that guy now. Like he's legitimately an efficient scoring machine for the Denver Nuggets. So maybe another guy gets consideration.
Well, hey, as always, tell us what you think. Tell us who you think deserves the awards that we just went over in the comments below. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into more playoff picture and how the NBA playing games are shaping up. This is the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Stick around. Thanks for listening to the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Welcome back to the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. Ryan Steele, Ben Sperry here with you. We're going to get to talking about the NBA playoff games, or play-in games, I should say. Heating up here, end of the season. We're about 4, 5, 6 games away from being into the playoffs. Let's talk about some matchups that you guys want to see and what we're looking at here playoff-wise. Go ahead, one of you.
Well, let me set the stage a little bit like this. There's clearly tiers in both conferences. The Utah Jazz, Phoenix Suns, unless they completely crap the bed and somebody else gets hot, one of those teams is going to be the number 1 overall seed, both in the West and for the entire league. In the East, there's a 3-way race for the top seed, Philly, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn. And then in the West, we got, the Denver, LA Clippers for really the 3 seed, with Dallas, Portland, and LA kind of battling to be not the 7 seed because then they're going to have to be in the play-in tournament. And the same thing in the East. You got the Knicks, the Hawks, the Heat, and Boston all kind of trying to stay out of the 7 seed, whether it's 4, 5, or 6. And then we have the play-in tournament teams, which have different levels of scariness. I think some are only scary to the other play-in teams and would make interesting matchups. But others could legitimately be a threat in the first round, even as a team that becomes a play-in team. So I think that's kind of to set it up. You got anything to add to that, Steele?
I mean, yeah, I think one team in particular that it could be scary to teams that might have to play them in a playing game is Washington, just because to have 2 players that good, and I mean in Beal and Westbrook, and how hot Westbrook's been and Beal's been incredible all year. I think that's a team you wouldn't want to see compared to like an Indiana or a Charlotte who really doesn't have any and I'm not trying to hate on Domantas Sabonis or anything, but they really don't have a star power on either of those teams that you'd really worry too much about.
But you know what I would say though is I think Washington's scary as a play-in team against those other play-in teams because I think they can beat those teams. But I don't think they're scary. Yeah, I think they can beat in a series. And
even let's say you're Miami or Boston or Atlanta or New York, and one of you falls to 7. I don't even think you would be scared of them if it was a 7-game series.
Oh no, not at all.
I just mean the fact it's a play-in tournament and okay,
1 game,
or
one game and then the other game, I guess for them. But
what was the thing you said, Ben, about when we were talking about the NCAA tournament and how it doesn't matter where you finished as a team, when you get into a one-game playoff thing, if your two best players are better than the two best players on the other team, it doesn't matter about the rest of the team. If you catch fire, you're good.
Yeah, and that gives them a real shot, I think, against these other teams. Because, like, if Westbrook gives you a 40, 10, and 10 night while Beal scores 35 and hits like 5 threes, all of a sudden you got a chance. Especially if just one other guy gets hot. And they got guys that can randomly shoot or do one thing well. And it could happen.
And then, bro, in the West, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of sloppy down, like Lakers in a playoff, I would say this: if I'm a 1 or a 2 seed, I'm hoping the Lakers come up to 6 at least, because then you can just avoid them all the way through in a first round. But even like San Antonio, Memphis, I mean, they're okay, but I don't think they worry anybody like the Lakers or, I mean, Golden State though too. I mean, that's a team. Like if let's say it holds true and the Lakers in Golden State end up being your 7 and 8 seeds, man, the Suns and the Jazz just had their best season in like 10 years at least, and that's your prize. You get to play arguably two of the best players I've ever seen in the first round.
Yeah, those are both terrible matchups for teams, I think. And I think, the Lakers, it's not good for them to end up in the play-in tournament.
More games
and they could just lose, right? Like they could lose a random one and not even make the playoffs, which would be crazy. They'd have to lose twice, I guess. But, it's still kind of crazy to think about that they could not be in the playoffs after winning a championship last year. And it's due to injuries, don't get me wrong, but that would be a crazy outcome. But I do agree if they get into the playoffs and they get some type of health, it doesn't even have to be 100% health. That is a scary first-round matchup. And going against Steph Curry, the way he's been this season, I don't think they have enough to win a 7-game tournament, but he's so good that he can get 1 or 2 by himself because he just goes off. And, you still got the heart of a champion with guys like Draymond out there. I just don't think they have enough around them
they don't.
To really push the Jazz or the Suns.
How about matchups that you want to see that maybe you're hoping we see?
So I have 2 that – so this one probably won't happen now because the Lakers are going the opposite direction. But for a second, it looked like it could have been Clippers-Lakers in the first round. Yeah. And I think that would be a fun – are we better? I'm sorry.
You glitched a little bit there. You're good. Keep going.
I was going to say, I think Clippers-Lakers would be a really fun first-round matchup. The Lakers started losing, so it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. But that would have been a really fun one. I do like basically all the Western matchups as long as, like, it doesn't end up being like the Spurs or Memphis getting in there because I just don't feel like they can really make an interesting matchup.
Right.
Denver versus Dallas or Denver versus Portland's a fun playoff series. The Clippers versus really either of those teams or the Lakers is a fun playoff series. So I like almost all the West.
Well, Steele, I think it was you that said it when we weren't recording that you said it's going to be one of the 3 teams in the East. Nobody can beat nobody's going to beat them, and then the West is wide open.
And I only say that because basketball, for as long as it's been in the NBA, as long as it's been, you pretty much know it's pretty easy to predict as far as who's going to be in the finals or who's going to be at least in that Final 4. You might have a year where the Lakers beat San Antonio this year or vice versa, whatever. But pretty much coming into a season, look at the East. Nets are right there. Bucks are right there. The Heat, I think people thought they'd be at least top 3, top 4, but the Philly's right there. The West, like you just said, though, it might be as open as it's been since the Warriors they're not the power anymore. LeBron and AD have both been hurt, and now they're in a vulnerable spot. It's one thing to be the first seed and play a chump team in the first round, and then, but even like the chump team in the 8th seed this year is Steph Curry having the most insane season he's probably ever had. So the West is crazy.
Yeah. And at the same time, the Jazz and the Suns to some degree are unproven in the playoffs, right? And they're both been so good all year, so they have to be considered among the favorites or championship contenders. But even the Clippers, right? Like, when have these teams done something in the playoffs as a unit to make you think they can do it. And then the Nuggets, they did go to the Western Conference Finals last year and had a lot of good moments, but without
Now
Murray, it doesn't seem likely. So the West is open in a weird way.
Yeah, like basically, I'll ask
yeah.
this: Would it be super shocking that I know it was a little bit different last year. We were in a bubble, and the Miami Heat get to the finals, and people didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
they might have saw, they have a good matchup for the Bucks, but they probably won't make it to the finals. They get to the finals, okay? Would it shock you at all if a team like Dallas or Portland made it to the finals, or would that be like that not shock you? Basically, is my question. I mean,
honestly, the only it would shock me if the Warriors got there.
Yeah,
the groups we've talked about.
To me, that's almost an impossibility.
And it would probably do something for like Curry's stock all time that he'd like launch up the top 10 rankings. But other than that, I wouldn't be shocked if any of these Western teams got hot or if teams had injuries, they could slide by a couple rounds. Like now in the East, I would still be shocked if we saw the Knicks or the Hawks or the Hornets or somebody like that get past 2 rounds. Like I just couldn't see it. The Heat is a maybe for me because they just did it last year and maybe they can put it together again. But it does seem like it's going to be one of the top 3 seeds in the East.
Sure.
And it's going to be a battle between those 3 teams, depending on how it shakes out in terms of seeding.
I just think all 3 of those teams look like they got considerably better, whether they added pieces, added a coach, added multiple pieces. The Heat just seemed like they didn't grow. Where you thought you would see a ton of growth from Bam and Duncan and Tyler Hero and Nunn, I don't think you saw that huge growth. Now, like you said, could they get in there and give teams trouble? Because it's a lot different regular season, and you've got a coach in Spoelstra that he's great at that game-to-game schemes and changes and stuff. But still, like you said, I mean, the Bucks, Nets, and I mean the Nets just seem so overwhelming sometimes.
Right. I will say though, if there's a team from the top 3 in the East that I thought would get maybe a bad first round matchup, if it holds steady and Boston ends up being 7, Milwaukee versus Boston. I'm not saying like Milwaukee wouldn't be the favorite and maybe win that, but Boston's not a terrible basketball team. Like they could get going with those 2 guys, those 2 really good wings, and
I think if you're Milwaukee, you just don't want to see Miami in the first round.
Honest to compete. Sorry.
That's all right. It's fun. It's fun to see it. That one time your eyes got real weird. But anyways.
But what do you think? Do you think Milwaukee, if I'm them, I don't want to see Miami in that first round?
Yeah, they probably don't want to see Miami, no.
Only because of matchups. I'm not that I say like Miami's better, but it's like, okay, if we'd rather not do that again, because it may be a little PTSD in the back of their heads, like, really again?
Yeah. And I mean, the other unknown with all this is what will Brooklyn look like? Because Harden, somebody's been hurt all year, right? Whether it's Harden or Durant or Kyrie. And now they have shown that there's a lot of value to redundancy, right? Like to have 3 like all-world ball dominant players doesn't sound like on paper would make sense, but it kind of does if 1 or 2 of them is going to be hurt at any given time.
But now here's the tough part though is it was all Gucci when it was, Kyrie was that guy for his team, Harden was that guy for his team, Durant was one of a few guys for the Warriors. They had, a guy out there to be the stopper on the other end. Which one of those 3 is going to be the perimeter stopper if you start all 3 of those guys? That to me, that's the most interesting part for them is who's the guy that down the stretch, if all 3 of you are going to have to be out there, obviously you're not going to put one of them on the bench to put a defensive guy out there, are you? So if who's getting the stops, basically. I'm not saying like I don't think Durant's a bad defensive player. I don't think he is what he was post injury. Harden's never been a good defender. Kyrie's pretty much been a lousy defender most of his career. I'm just super interested. Like, okay, like y'all gonna have to guard now. There's no Cephalosha for KD out there, or Clay or Livingston for Harden. There's no CP3 taking the dominant ball. Kyrie, like that's gonna be tricky for them.
I mean, right now they'd be slotted to play Miami.
Right.
I think what Brooklyn still has going for it though is
you can't
match up with them.
Right.
Right.
I think
you can't match up with them either. And,
I think that's probably a 5-piece if they face I don't think that's a good matchup for Miami.
Right. Because, like, and I think I texted this to you guys. When Durant gets hurt, every time he comes back, I look at him like, is he still going to be the same dude? And then he still is. Like, every time. I'm like shocked.
Right.
And I'm somehow shocked when I shouldn't be that Kevin Durant is so unstoppable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he still can create off the dribble and shoot over you whenever he wants. He's still so weirdly long and agile for a giant man. It's hard to say that the Nets can't beat really anybody if they get going as a group. But it's also not hard to imagine them losing. They have a high variance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it just takes maybe to me they're a KD injury away from it going down. And you can say that about any team, but like they're thin. Like if you're gonna rely on Blake Griffin to get stops and play a ton of minutes now. I know they try to get, LA and he retired, but I don't know that. But if they just outscore you and those three just play lights out throughout a series, I mean, there's just basically nothing you're going to do about that.
Yeah. Watch out for incredibly small ball from them. There might be times where Blake Griffin plays 5, but there might be times where KD is essentially their 5. Depending on the matchup,
perimeter defenders out there,
and you throw like the Jeff Greens, the Landry Shamits, the Bruce Browns out there
for sure,
and they go actually incredibly small, but still have size because Harden's kind of thick and KD's super long. And
I think that's a good point though, because I like all those guys and those guys have contributed well. But as we know, like when you get in the playoff series, what game 57's rotation is now shortened and guys that maybe got 15 to 18 minutes a game, that's down to spot minutes in a playoff series.
But the reason I say that is, and this is what I anticipate looking for at some point, that could be like their version of a death lineup. And I think I think somebody like against like a Milwaukee, that would kill them, like at least possibly. But I think against like a Philly, you still have to mess with Embiid.
You can't do that against Philly.
And Embiid's too big, too strong, and I don't know. Like that's going to be the matchup.
I think you can do it against Boston.
Yeah. I think you can do it against anybody but Embiid because he's too damn big.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anybody else in the East that has even somewhat of a competent big or somewhat big.
And I mean, Adebayo is not really a post up big. Like,
right, but I think he's adding enough. I think he's added enough to his game where if you're going to guard him with Kevin Durant, then you're going to run into maybe Kevin Durant who might get in foul trouble.
Yeah.
So I don't even think they would need to do that with Miami necessarily. I just think they have a lot better pieces. I don't know, but I agree that could be a death lineup for them that we haven't. But which is weird. We've never seen a team like this play and been together almost a full year, and they haven't been together. It's so weird. I don't know. I can't wait. Like me and you is like our favorite time of the year here coming up.
And I do look forward to seeing how Brooklyn ends up using 3 of the greatest ISO like scorers you can imagine on one team. But like I said, I look forward to a lot of these Western matchups. So any predictions right now?
You know me, I got none.
That's funny. Ben, do you have any predictions right now?
Why not? That way I can just put myself out there. I predict Golden State gets into the playoffs through the play-in game. That one of the top 3 seeds in the West loses in the first round.
Yeah.
And that Milwaukee doesn't get past the second round.
Ooh.
Hater. No,
I was gonna say that last one's a little bold. Anyways, though, I guess we're gonna find out here in a couple weeks, and we can go from there. Final thoughts, Ryan Steele.
Hey man, it was fun to be back doing what we love to do. We make a lot of money off this, so it was good to get that paycheck.
Disclaimer: we make no money off of this.
Pay some bills. No, but in all seriousness, look out for a lot more frequent episodes when the playoffs start. Just so it's kind of like almost the dog days of summer for baseball right now, where like you're just kind of gearing up for what's to come. So many good games are going to happen in such a short span. What TNT used to call it, like 40 games and 40 nights or something like that. Like there's going to be such great storylines. You could see Chris Paul versus LeBron in a playoff series. You've never seen that. I think a lot more frequent content and a lot more fun stuff. So be on the lookout for that.
Ben?
Yeah, it's going to be all about matchups real soon. It's not always who the best team was in the regular season when it comes to playoff time. Sometimes it's just who has the right combination to beat the particular team they're facing, and makes the best adjustments in a 7-game series. So I'm looking forward to that chess match.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our super fans listening at home. Parker, you're the man. Keep shooting
Parker.
Keep shooting those J's in the gym. Yeah, lefty. Keep shooting those J's. Keep practicing those layups. Remember, 500 layups gets your name on the wall, man. And then get to bed and do your homework. All right. Hey, as always, click that subscribe button. Continue to like us on Facebook. Keep checking us out for new content all the time. Hey, keep hitting us up with those comments. We love those comments coming at us. This has been another episode of the Give and Go Basketball Podcast. We'll see you next time.
I'm Ben Sperry, and this was the Give and Go Basketball Podcast.